Yesterday, it was my birthday. I turned 23 years old. I'm getting more and more into the Unk status, unfortunately. But as a present, Pippi and the development team decided to drop the PP rework that would quite literally eliminate all of my 400 PP plays that I worked 5 years to get. Jokes and biases aside, however, a new PP rework has finally been released, and this is a pretty big one because there are some pretty big changes coming to the game. In the following 2 weeks, expect a waiting period where we will have to wait for every single score to be once again recalculated, re-indexed, and so on, as per usual with the releases of any PP rework that has been happening for the past 2 to 3 years. But what are the changes that are happening in the new PP rework? Well, the first biggest change is replacing the AR and hidden bonuses with a reading skill, and this is probably the biggest change that is happening in the PP rework. Currently, whenever you play a map with high or low AR, or if you play with hidden, it comes with a static multiplier for the aim and speed skills. This means that the buffs are only based off of the AR value only and not considering how hard it is to actually read the map itself. But now, thanks to the help of Quota Q and the contributions from Moonpoint, we have a new skill called Reading. The Reading skill aims to replace the current bonuses by calculating the density at each node and using that to scale reading difficulty alongside some basic angle bonuses. They are also stating here that slightly higher ranked players will be nerfed a lot due to them previously receiving a bit more bonuses than usual for simply playing higher AR maps. However, lower ranked players may see a buff in their scores. As a result in this change, you also may expect some large scale buffs on low AR scores as well. Next up, the speed difficulty summation is now changed to be a harmonic sum. So previously the final difficulty was formed by doing a geometric sum of difficulties, meaning that only a certain number of nodes end up contributing to a non-negligible amount of difficulty, which meant that adding a length bonus in PP wasn't being necessary in order to ensure that adding more nodes in the map increases the reward for a map. However, now thanks to Quota Q once again, this final difficulty is now formed using a harmonic sum of the speed skill. This means that each node actually contributes to speed's final difficulty and does not require a length bonus like previously. And the advantage of this is that the reward for more nodes is directly tied to difficulty, so maps with a lot of easy nodes will receive a lower reward than maps of equal object count with a higher number of difficulty nodes. The next change is replaced fixed length strain chunking with variable length strains, and this is related basically to that 200 plus bonus that Tonobivana got on his PP record, because the map had slightly offsetted nodes that for some reason gave more PP without actual difficulty change. So principle in difficulty calculation is something called chunking, where rather than difficulty being awarded for every single object, chunking splits the map into 400 millisecond segments, and the hardest node of each chunk is the difficulty for that chunk. However, fluctuations without changing a bitmap's difficulty can happen, as we saw previously with the Tonobivana PP record incident. Thanks to a change to Fina Doggy, chunks are now tied to objects and are now allowed to vary in size. This simply means that offset and BPM changes are no longer able to influence difficulty on their own. So yeah, every top player that was farming Silver of Ghosts now with DT will be extremely nerfed due to this change. We now have an improved angle calculation for better representation of the path taken on sliders. So the aim calculation has had a set of angle bonuses intended to award difficulty for patterns which are pretty awkward to aim. For sliders specifically, these angles are calculated by estimating the lazy path the player would take in order to correctly hit a slider. However, they weren't really the most accurate and realistic representation for certain slider patterns, which would give a lot of unfair buffs. However, a change by Niseko now improves this by changing which parts of the slider are used to form an angle, and you can see by this image here, this makes a huge difference, and they have a bit more of a precise representation of the angle certain players will take for the map. The next change is an improved relationship between distance and BPM increases in aim. So until now, aim evaluation has prioritized high BPMs with lower distances over low BPM with higher distances. But now this mechanism has been changed closer towards rewarding BPM and distance increases equally. They show a graph here to better represent as to how the change looks, and that this isn't the solution to this problem still, because higher BPMs are still generally more rewarding. However, they are not as high rewarding as previously. And they state here that because of this effect, higher spacing patterns as well as slower jumps will generally see a buff. However, smaller spacing patterns as well as some faster jumps will generally see a nerf. Maps that will see a pretty big buff because of this change are, for example, the top difficulty of Monstrata's map set of Quaver, Don't Look Back difficulty of Transdense Anarchy, and many more other maps. The next change is the replacement of speed distance distance bonuses with separate snap and flow aim difficulty evaluations. So up until now, all-star rating for flow aim has come from a bonus for distance on the speed skill. This was frustrating for them to work with because they had no control over flow aim difficulty beyond just the distance and also being attached to the tapping skill. However, thanks to a change, the distance bonus has been replaced with a new flow aim difficulty evaluator in the aim scale, and this is just the groundwork for future flow aim improvements, as they probably plan to change even more stuff in terms of flow aim and speed. However, thanks to this change, flow aim now considers velocity and angle changes rather than simply just distance. They showed here a graph on Sidetrack Day Yuri's Tyranny difficulty to show the difference between how speed was represented previously and how speed is shown now due to this change. The next change is replaced speed accuracy scaling with deviation scaling. So tapping deviation is a statistic similar to unstable rate, which was created by Frostium, which combined the score's hit statistic, OD, and amount of difficulty speed nodes in a beat map. This metric has been already in use in order to nerf scores that require tapping improperly, for example rake tapping as some people may call it. But now, thanks to a change by standard, they are now using this deviation metric as a replacement for accuracy scaling within speed. So previously, before this change, if you were to play a map with slightly higher OD than usual and you had lower accuracy, then you would get rewarded less PP than if you were to play the map with lower OD. But now, thanks to this change, high OD, lower accuracy scores on speed heavy maps will be buffed and low OD scores on speed heavy maps will be nerfed. And as an example, they show the graph of Humiliation Supreme with DT Hard Rock to show how this scales now due to this change. The next very notable change that happens in this PP rework is the nerf repeated angles in snap aim. To put it short, aim slop is now completely nerfed due to this change. A lot of aim slop maps have acute angle jumps that are repetitive a lot throughout the map, but now with this change, essentially it has been nerfed. For example, on some beat maps, the preload cycle difficulty Pika's Extra has been nerfed from 7.7 stars all the way to 7.3 stars. Kumocho's extra difficulty on the Best of Both Worlds has been nerfed from 7.6 stars all the way to 7.3 stars. And on Pika's extra difficulty on Cherry Pop, the map has been nerfed from 8.6 stars all the way to 8.3 stars. So yeah, absolutely everybody is getting nerfed in this PP rework, including aim players and speed players. But the final big change that they did in this PP rework is to adjust the miss penalty to be harsher on initial impact. But it's short, scores that have 1 to 3 misses will see a nerf due to this change. Scores that have 4 to 9 misses will roughly stay the same, while scores that have more than 9 misses will actually gain more PP now. There's also a lot, and I mean a lot of minor changes, so if you want to read them for yourself, then either pause the video and read them here, or I'll leave a link in the description to the entire article that also covers some changes in other game modes as well. So what happens in the global leaderboards as a change because of this? Well, for example, Emrek, of course, will be rank 1 once again, with around 2.4k net PP above the second place, which is Krishina, which by the way loses 5,000 net PP as a result of this PP rework, and this genuinely might be the biggest PP loss that we have seen in recent years. In terms of highest scores in the game being set, we will no longer have a 2k PP play, nor will we have even a 1.9k PP play, because the PP record is now Crystalia, which will be slightly nerfed from 1872 PP all the way to 1857 PP. Emrek once again occupies the most scores in the top 10 highest scores in the game, having 5 scores in the top 10 highest scores in the game. The other 3 are from Krishina and 2 more are from Evox. While most players are losing a ton of PP because of this PP rework, some players are actually gaining PP and gaining a ton of ranks because of this. One of those people, for example, is Saikyu, who gains 79 PP from this PP rework but gains 20 plus ranks because of this. And someone who did absolutely nothing but actually re-enters the top 50 is Whitecat, who gains 4 net PP from this rework but regains 27 ranks and gets back into the top 50. Someone who also returns in the top 100, for example, is Chocoman, or also known as Kokizi, who actually loses 11 PP from this rework but gains 40 ranks and re-enters the top 100 at rank 94. Someone who also barely squeezes in is actually Vaxei, who loses 408 PP because of this rework but re-enters the top 100 at exactly rank 100. And like we previously said, in this PP rework, people that focus a lot on reading scores will get a ton of PP from this rework, and one of the biggest examples of this is Bonk, for example, who gains 739 PP and 109 ranks. But yeah, that's pretty much everything about this PP rework. Do let me know in the comments below what you think of it. Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Do you think it's a step in the right direction for this game? If you haven't watched watched my previous video, then be sure to click the video that is on screen right now, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.